right. We are back. Just waiting for everything to fire up. And firstly, I'd like to apologize for anyone watching this later and anyone trying to connect in now. I can see a couple people showed up. So had a little bit of technical challenges here. First, it was the audio. And then previous one was there was no commentary. So it looked like you guys could not participate in the chat. So I'm going to let some more people come in. Let me type this real quick. All right. We got Tempest in the house, or Patriot. What's up? Hello. Can you hear me okay? Obviously the live chat seems to be working. So I'm not sure what was going on the first or second time. Good. Glad to hear that the audio is much better. I'll definitely admit I'm not the most technologically advanced person you've ever met. I think I can hold my own, at least for what I need to get done, but I'm not the best at it. And YouTube with its different settings, and you can't really save default settings, so you have to like hit every box every time. But kind of is what it is. So recapping for those watching later, or anyone, I could see more people are joining right now. So recapping, just going over some questions I've gotten on my email, which is mr2actual@gmail.com. So if you guys have any questions, and you guys, obviously I'm focused around the Second Amendment here, but if it's gun-related questions, legal stuff, to the best of my non-legally certified abilities to answer that, or even if it's questions about anything, life advice, weird stuff, if I can attempt to do that, you can email Mr2Actual, MR2A Actual, one word, all of it, at gmail.com. And then I will collect all of your questions and then answer them. If it's anything sensitive, anything personal, then I won't put your name in there and just answer the question, and you're going to know who you are. Let's see. Tempest is saying, briefly restate what you think about the coming court case. So kind of what I was talking about on my second attempt for tonight, but recapping, we're talking about the New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Corlett, which the oral arguments for that at the Supreme Court of our United States is going to happen November 3rd. I believe I have that date correct. This one it's going to be an important decision, whether it's good or bad for us in terms of the Second Amendment and our Bill of Rights and American civil liberties. But it is notable already from the beginning for a couple of reasons. One, the Supreme Court actually took a Second Amendment case, and the United States Supreme Court has not had a Second Amendment case or taken a Second Amendment case since 2010, to my knowledge, McDonald versus Chicago. So it's been over a decade. And even Justice Clarence Thomas has stated on the side, like past year and a half, of, hey, we really need to actually start taking Second Amendment cases, because there's a lot of circuit courts that are conflicted. There's, we came out with the 2008 Heller versus DC, and that was cool and all, but like, there's been some confusion that I feel like it's kind of our duty to clarify that. And we repeatedly have been, denying certain Second Amendment related cases when I feel like we should be taking them. And Clarence Thomas is not alone. With the, addition of Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Comey Barrett from the Trump administration. And he got 3 justices on the court total. But anyway, back to the case. The case is revolving around basically the state of New York, much like California, which I'm intimately familiar with from my past. Kind of has a scheme going on. It's not a shall issue state, it's a may issue state. So, in a shall issue state, as long as you check all the boxes, pass the background check, and do the legal required stuff, you shall be issued a permit. In a may issue state, they may issue you a concealed carry permit, provided that you jump through enough flaming hoops and you make them happy enough. New York is one of those may issue states, where, whatever the statute says, that's great. But in reality, you got to be wealthy, you got to be famous, be well connected, whatever. Otherwise, if you're a standard regular Joe like you and me, if we were New York residents living in New York State, like we're not going to get a concealed carry permit unless we donate a significant amount of money to the right campaign, that we're wealthy or famous or whatever it is. And even in the state of New York, if you apply for a concealed carry permit as an average Joe, and the reasons, have to state the reasons you want to do this, and the reason you state is, hey, it's my Second Amendment. I just want to be able to defend myself and my family when I'm out in public. Even self-defense is not enough in the state of New York. So what's interesting is we can kind of see the written arguments that they're going to present on November 3rd at the Supreme Court and the oral arguments. But basically, the state of New York has taken the position that, we're not saying you don't have the right to defend yourself, and we're not even saying you don't have the right to defend yourself outside the home. We're just saying, a certain upstate, rural, spread out counties, that's okay, but any urban city areas, it's suddenly not okay. So it's kind of a bold move by the state of New York and their legal team to kind of ride on this argument that it's population dependent, based on what or where specifically we're talking about. I do, based on the composition of the Supreme Court and reading through these written arguments from the New York Rifle and Pistol Association and from the state of New York, I do anticipate, all facts considered, that this is actually going to be a pretty win for the Second Amendment. And in fact, I think it's going to put in jeopardy even the existence or status of may issue states. That after this comes down, I don't, if you were in favor of gun control for this specific court case that the Supreme Court has decided weeks ago that they're going to take up, the writing's there, they're taking oral arguments pretty soon. But if you were in favor of gun control or restricting people's abilities to lawfully carry a concealed firearm on their person in public for the purpose of lawful self-defense, I think you have reasons to be concerned if you were in favor of gun control, because this court case and the composition of the Supreme Court and the desire to take Second Amendment cases like this specifically, I think it's not going to bode well for those who want more control. I don't think that's going to work out for you. I do have a couple more emails to get to, but let me look at the live chat. Let's see. Hey, Mr. 2A, I hope this isn't too toxic, but what do you think of all the national divorce rhetoric? Ooh, national divorce. Could you specify what you mean? Because I'll admit, I want to be honest with you guys all the time. Just keep it real and just throw it out there. I don't know specifically what you're talking about. I have an idea of what I think you're talking about. Civil War, kind of vibes on that. So I think I have an idea of what you're talking about, but if you could specify so I can hit exactly what you mean, I think that would be helpful to me for sure, but maybe everyone. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for that, let's go back to the emails and let's get back to that. So, all right. So it's about 10 different emails about the Alec Baldwin situation. I guess filming the movie that's going to come out called Rust, I guess is what it's called. So I have like 10 different emails on that. So we're definitely going to talk about that. But let's see. I think I got another one. People are talking about splitting up the U.S. or splitting the USA up, essentially. Yeah, I think it's hard, like going back in time in history. When we started, even before the American Revolution, before April of 1775, all of the 13 colonies had their own currency. They had their own customs and practices. They had their own laws and things. And even after the war and after, holy shit, we actually won and we're still alive. Well, now we need to focus on creating like a brand new form of a country that we don't want to end up at all like the government and empire we just like violently escaped from. Once we had our first constitution, which was terrible, the Articles of Confederation, Perpetual Union. So then they had to go back to the drawing board, get ratification to create, draft, and then ratify the Constitution we have today. And about 2 years later, we finally got the Bill of Rights added on top of it. So throughout all of that, even during those times, the 13 colonies and then at this time, the 13 states were all kind of doing their own thing. And I don't know about you guys, I've done a number of cross-country road trips. I've lived in 7 different states in our country. And not just traveled or passed through, I've lived there for years, for times in my life. But I can definitely tell you the culture of New York is very different than Louisiana. The culture of Virginia, very different than New Mexico. The culture of Utah, very different than the culture of California and the laws. So despite these wild differences sometimes in culture and laws, mindset, the people that we choose to elect in these states, I do inherently believe that we are better off in some kind of union where, just as the preamble states, that it's, us trying to make a more perfect union. Things like provide for the common defense, things like, trying to basically the gist of it is keep all of us in this union where nationally we have protection, that we have economic policies that are driving all of us forward, hopefully, if things are going well. But if individually as states, like if it was Wisconsin versus the world, well, that's not going to be very good for Wisconsin. Or, Alabama versus the world, or pick one of your 50 states and U.S. territories versus the world, trying to ride on its own GDP and economy and geography. It's not better than if we all band together, we help each other out, and we all have a common purpose. So with that said, if there's talk about a national divorce or splitting up or certain states seceding from this union, they think they can be better off alone. I think the Declaration of Independence definitely laid forth the right of states to secede or decide, you know what, I'm taking my baseball. I'm going home. I'm out of this thing. And I think the Civil War definitely cemented the lesson that, the Declaration gave you the right to secede as a state, like the state of Texas, with their GDP, military bases, industry capabilities, natural resources, lots of land and sea routes. If the state of Texas decided they would be better off just being the Republic of Texas by themselves and just dissolve themselves from the Union, and the United States is going to have 59 states, or 49 states now, and Texas is going to fly under the 6 flags that it's had. It's going to fly back to its Texas flag and its own state. So they can do that. And if they vote to do that and they feel it's necessary, then they should. But now they got to earn it, because Uncle Sam and the rest of the Union is not going to let a state go without a fight. There's no way out of it. So, and when that happens, we're talking about Americans fighting and killing other Americans. And that's not a life that I want any of us to live. I do believe we are better working together as one nation, but each state is kind of like its own country, doing its own thing. I think we are better that way. So kind of circling back to your question, what are my thoughts on an idea of like a national divorce? I think it's not a very warm and fuzzy way to describe total war. National divorce, otherwise known as everyone you know dies and you kill your brother and other people you know. And suddenly you murder your neighbors because they're trying to kill you as well. It's a very bubble wrapped term for absolute hell. I believe I've remained very consistent about the idea that we should utilize all peaceful political and diplomatic options to get ourselves the hell away from that, if we can do it. But I will stand by. Read your Declaration of Independence very clearly. If you're not happy as a state and you have enough votes, and you as a state and all of you elect, and the decisions they vote on that you want, and you guys decide that, or a collection of states decide that they don't want to be part of this anymore, there's a right to do it, I would argue. But now you got to back it up. And you can only back that up with things I think most people, thankfully, have never seen or don't want to be part of. So I don't know if that answered the question, but a national divorce, especially with adversaries like China, that would love to see, they would love to see American states and Americans killing and fighting each other. They would love to see that. And the thing is, we have a president every 4 to 8 years, depending. The plans with the State Department, the Treasury, whatever presidential administrations is in office, like, our plans generally go 4 to 8 years, and even within 1 or 2 terms of a presidential administration, there's always a shift of what they want to do, or, hey, we're going to do this now. Adversaries like China, which I identify, in my opinion, is our biggest threat. They don't have a 4 to 8 year plan. They have a 100-year plan. And they don't care. They don't care about intellectual property. They don't care that they're stealing technology and ideas. They don't care that they're using child slave labor to make your cell phone. They don't care that they're openly committing genocide right now against the Uyghur people in Western China, sending them to gulags, re-education camps, concentration camps, most probably based on satellite imagery, death camps in some places. They don't care. They don't care at all. Because we're on that 4 to 8 year plan. We're talking about splitting up or divorcing ourselves. They would love it. And that's not something I can support. That's not something, especially when we do have the peaceful political diplomatic tools still available in the toolbox that are ready to go. I would like to see us choose that option rather than help adversaries like China make their job easier and see Americans killing and dying on our own soil, killing each other. I don't want that. So I hope we can figure this out. And I'm not here to tell you I've got all the answers. I'm just trying to answer the question, be very honest, very real with you guys. So that's how I feel about that. Okay, let me catch up. Let's see. Stuff was going on. Shaggy is going for the night. Stay safe, everybody. God bless. Thank you, Shaggy. I think we all need that in these times. Back to Patriot. In short, I oppose tearing up our country. I'll get off of this, though. You don't have to. I like to be optimistic about things. What have you been up to? Yeah, for me, dudes. So I've got all the EMT stuff behind me. Got that knocked out. Just got a job in Utah, somewhat close to me. There's the Sundance Mountain Resort, Sundance, Utah, up Provo Canyon. And I actually got a job. I applied to be ski patrol for this upcoming winter season. And I got the job. So already did my orientation at Sundance. While I'm doing this winter, I'm going to be moving into looking at fire departments to be an apprentice or join, kind of move that direction. So, like I've said in the past, I apologize. I've not been doing as many videos as I would like. Things have been kind of busy. There's lots of studying going on, but that's what's been going on with me. So yeah, let's see. Agree, Mr. Second Amendment. That's just what I've been hearing people call it. Yeah. And I don't want you to think I'm coming off hard on you, because I'm not. Maybe I'll have to Google that and really get up to speed on the national divorce situation. But I really do believe we are far better off utilizing all of our talents, ethics together versus kind of turning our back on each other and kind of walking the other way. Letting our do it, inevitably opening up our marriage to each other. I don't want that. So whatever they want to call it, I'm not a fan. Not a fan, especially when we still have, other things we can do peacefully and politically to get things done. See, China and Russia would love it. They can't beat us if we fight back. That's why they want us to be demoralized and divided. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The United States, we have created the most capable, most devastating, most far-reaching military that has ever existed in recorded human history. I don't think even, space work with allies to Russia is much very elongated self-destruction plan. But I worry more about China because there's nothing that they're not willing to do. And they're actively taking measures to, like when we recently announced that the United States and Australia were going to have an agreement where we are going to give Australia, United States, like Los Angeles class, other class nuclear submarines to Australia. We're going to teach them how to use them. And inevitably, this is going to mean there's going to be, a U.S. naval installation or hub somewhere on the coast of Australia. I applauded that because if Australia has American nuclear submarines with an American nuclear or naval base, tremendous game changer. So I was pretty glad to see that. I know France was a little bit upset about it because they had a lot of money involved with the bunk ass French submarine they were going to sell Australians, but you your boy Uncle Sam showed up and he won in a big way on that one. So I like seeing stuff like that. And yeah, I do think our adversaries, chiefly China, we always have extremists and terrorists and things like that, but state or nation that has an economy in their own currency and they're an established world power, China is more of a threat for not just us, but the rest of the world, the way I see it. So I was glad to see stuff like that. Any new guns, Mr. 2A? The only thing I got is Glock Model 23. I did put together a Recon Ghetto Blaster, is what I call it. Being dismounted reconnaissance for 4.5 years, active duty, and going to ARSLIC Recon Surveillance Leaders Course, ran by 4th Ranger Training Battalion, 4th RTV, at Fort Benning, Georgia, and like doing, being stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana, at least stateside when we weren't going to Afghanistan or Iraq, my first and second deployments, but kind of getting engrossed in that range reconnaissance patrol lifestyle and training. Even a stock plain Jane 14.5-inch barrel, heavy SOCOM barrel, quad rail with just a rear sight. There's no ACOG or optics on no forward grip. There's no suppressor or anything else. And even just the stock plain Jane M4A1. I was like, dude, this thing is like, can I get a hacksaw, cut off like 3 inches of barrel? I don't even need the stock. I'll just take the stock off. The buffer tube is fine. That's fine. This quad rail, I don't even need this. It's heavy. Can I just take it off and wrap a rag around the barrel and just kind of like, rear sight? I don't even think I need that. The bottom line I'm getting at is like looking at the standard M4 carbine, even without all of the other stuff we throw on it to turn it into like a 16-pound disaster. I was like, dude, it's like a 15K movement up and down the hill through the streams, literally Vietnam shit. Like your carbine is over your head as you're going chest deep in this water. A hill site, making a height site. I was like carrying a 130-pound ruck and just sucking. I was like, dude, even the standard M4 is just too fucking heavy, dude. Like, is there anything we can do to make this better? And keep in mind, or for your information, like in the reconnaissance community, your number one battle drill, it's not clearing rooms, it's not assaulting an objective, it's not securing a town or any of that stuff. It's break contact, where you and 2 to 3 other dudes in a surveillance site are getting compromised by 2-man foot patrol, squad, platoon size element, whatever, where you need to go fast and furious, just blow out of that serve site fast and loud for, a quick minute of just hell. Claymores, flipping on auto, go full retard, very close range, establish fire superiority as you're bounding and getting out of there. So we're not Chris Kyle. We're not taking like accurate precision shots at distance. We're not, it's not a standard battle rifle that we need. We need a very niche purpose, specialized purpose rifle. And this AR-15 build has been on my mind for quite some time. So I finally did it. I built, basically, if I was in control of the design and what are we using to build this thing, what would be like a dismounted reconnaissance, LURS company, long range reconnaissance patrol like I'm used to. Like if we have a specialized weapon system just for this purpose, what would it look like? What would I want it to be? So ended up building that. Don't have it with me. It's downstairs right now. Actually, several nights ago, I did a night shoot with it. So, IR, nods and stuff like that were in play, and, white light as well. Kind of seeing how the rifle is going to handle. It does have a Surefire war comp on the end for an RC2, but unsuppressed even flash was greatly mitigated. The stunning recoil 5.56 was confidently maintained, and honestly, the only thing missing is it's not a Form 1 SBR lower, so it's a firearm. So it has a brace on it, where the real deal would have a stock. Still waiting on the RC2, but it would be a surefire 5.56 RC2 SOCOM suppressor, which individual teams could choose to take on and off. It is a 12.5-inch barrel. The only other legal thing that's not going to be possible at all is definitely needs to be full auto capable, select fire. Right now, obviously, it's safe and semi, but the real, like if the military was looking at this and they actually wanted to like adopt, test it, it would be an M4A1 that's safe semi-auto. Having a brace, waiting on the suppressor, and impossibility of having a third hole full auto, this is what it would be, really. It would have instead of the Vortex Crossfire red dot on top, it would have like an Aimpoint T2 micro or something, but it's Daniel Defense barrel and upper receiver, BCM bulk carrier group. Like it's made to last and function. So I guess that, long story short, answering your question, yeah, that would probably be the most recent or the newest firearms acquisition, which was me just building my dream AR that I've been thinking about for years. So let's see. Patriot says you still staying optimistic, Mr. 2A, about things generally. I believe that 2A should be in good shape. Yeah, so here's the thing. And honestly, when I started this channel, I think it's been over a decade ago at this point. That was right on the heels of the Heller decision, like fresh off the presses in 2008. And I was like, okay. And I admit at that time, I didn't even know that in the District of Columbia, you could not even physically own or possess a handgun at all. So for the fact that the 30-year handgun ban in DC got stripped away, and then they established this individual right to self-defense with firearms, I was like, we're kind of in bad shape. Or at least things just got better with the Heller decision, but things could go either way still. So my interest of safe and responsible firearms ownership, owning firearms, we the people, regular average people, having AR-15s, AKs, things like that. And no, it's not here just for hunting. It's not even here for hunting or target shooting at all. That's really cool, like side benefits, fringe benefits of having the Second Amendment, but we don't have a Second Amendment in our Bill of Rights to our Constitution so we can go deer hunting on Saturday. Like, that's not why it's there. So at that time, I was like, I realized there's a problem. So I need to kind of help educate and train and help kind of foster this for whoever will listen or whoever wants to watch, and however helpful I can try to be. I don't feel that way these days. These days, I'm like, with the composition of the Supreme Court the way it is now, with the justices we have, and since then, not only Heller, but we've had the McDonald decision. We're now taking, New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Corlett. Like that's a case that's happening, as we talked about earlier. I feel like the Second Amendment is getting better, and I'm not as, even with a president or administration that is not favorable to gun rights, and even with the majorities in the House and the Senate, everything else going on, well, allegedly, we still got Joe Manchin out of West Virginia. That dude, man, if you're drinking some whiskey, you might want to raise a glass to that guy, because every Democratic policy or initiative that they want to run, he, as a Democrat, no, I don't think so. And totally shipwrecks the whole thing. It's amazing, but he's been that way for years. It's not a surprise unless you just found out who he is. But but anyway, I'm actually, it might surprise people, but I'm not I'm not worried about the Second Amendment as much as I was when I first started this channel, and definitely as much as I was in recent years before the Trump administration and everything else. I think part of that too is over the last year and a half working in the gun industry. I mean, we have sold millions and millions, and I mean millions of firearms. And I'm not talking about a little 22 Savage single shot rifle for Boy Scout camp. We've sold millions of AR-15s, Glock pistols, AKs, like all of the stuff they don't want you to have. It's out there. Um, and it might surprise you who owns it. Not just like us who are in it to win it. We're all about Second Amendment stuff, but you may have, and I want you to think about this for a second. Think about a neighbor you might have, or a friend, or someone that you might have in your life that, oh, they wouldn't hurt a fly. They're not a man's man, whatever. There's no way they own a gun. They might have more guns than you. And trust me when I say, you never know. And at this point, we've already sprayed all of that Second Amendment toothpaste out of the bottle. You can't put that toothpaste back in the bottle. The cat is out of the bag, dude. So, like, whatever you want to write down on a piece of paper and have at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in DC, and like, it's not going to change the fact there are millions upon millions of ARs and Glocks and pistols and AKs and rifles and shotguns and all kinds of fun stuff. And hundreds of millions of rounds of ammunition and magazines and all kinds of stuff. I mean, if I was in favor of gun control and I really hated the Second Amendment and I just really hated that, I just wanted to ban it all, I would just hang my hat up, dude. I would just quit. There's no, it's like prohibition on steroids, dude. You can sign a piece of paper. That doesn't mean people aren't drinking and making, alcohol as we speak. And that's how it is with guns. So I'm always worried about it, or watching Second Amendment news, watching how things are going with the courts, the Supreme Court specifically, and presidential administrations, definitely the House, where a lot of the, seems like most, is it just me, or like the worst shit kind of articulates and originates from the House of Representatives? Like, and then even the Senate we have now is like, we're gonna beat that back down. No. So it's like, no matter what games are being played, like, I'm always concerned about it, but I got to tell you, I'm not worried about the Second Amendment as much as I was. Now, that's not me saying to stop caring, or to stop writing your representatives, or to stop voting, or to stop, encouraging safe and responsible gun ownership as Americans for the real reason we own these guns. That's just me saying I'm happy to report that over the past decade, a little over a decade since I've been doing this YouTube channel and really being part of this, I'm not as concerned as I was when I started, which makes me really happy. Lots more work to do. But I am actually more concerned about the First Amendment, which is weird. I think I kind of started with this, but when I started this thing, it was all about the Second Amendment. It was right after Heller, everything else. And, the First Amendment, I always cared about it. But even at that time, I don't want to say I took it for granted. I just figured being able to express yourself, and being able to have a voice and being able to preach or practice to whatever God you want, or not, basic fundamental human expression. I figured that was just universal. Left, right, center, other political parties, whatever your political, ideas are. I thought as Americans, we could all rally around, the First Amendment. That's like, at that time, it felt like, we all get to wake up tomorrow. There's going to be oxygen in the environment for us to breathe. Like, it's going to be there. The sky is going to be blue tomorrow. Like, that's kind of in the same neighborhood of where I put that First Amendment at that time when I started this channel. And I never thought the First Amendment would actually become kind of my primary focus or primary concern. I always like, dude, the Second Amendment, of course, especially every time there's a shooting or every time there's something, it becomes an issue. And, we had this really thin ice, fragile victory with Heller versus DC. I hope things get better, but they can definitely get worse if we're not careful. But the First Amendment was never, I was like, dude, it's the First Amendment. Democrat, Republican, and we're all on board with the First Amendment, no problem. Fast forward over a decade later, and I'm like, dude, the Second Amendment I'm always concerned about it, but I got to tell you, I'm a little bit more worried about the First Amendment right now. So that was a really long way of answering your question. But long story short, yes, I do feel a hell of a lot better about the Second Amendment. And worst comes to worst, the current or some future administration, whatever, gets in power and they sign a piece of paper saying we can't have these types of whatever guns. Like, dude, that's a piece of paper. That's a piece of paper, man. Like that it's already out here. Millions upon millions of firearms that you want to ban, and you sign this piece of paper saying that we can't have. Dude, it's already out there and people don't give a shit anymore. Like, we're already kind of at that, like, the bullshit filter is mostly full. So if you sign that magic piece of paper saying we can't legally own or possess things we've had for decades, and there's tens of millions of them in circulation, and you have no way of knowing who has what, worst comes to worst, the Second Amendment, I think we're doing just fine, or far better than we were when I started this channel. But yes, the First Amendment is actually, surprisingly, which I did not anticipate, but the First Amendment is actually what I'm more concerned about. So without beating that horse too much, let's get back on track. I don't want to bore you guys. All right. Let's see. Do you want an Acog? The answer is no. I was issued Acogs throughout the years. I actually purchased an Acog about a year ago. I sold that Acog. And of course, we're talking about the Trijicon Advanced Combat Optical Gun Sight. Military and military contractors, all about the acronyms, but we're talking about a 4x32. It's in an optic that is a forged aluminum housing of 7075 T6 heat treatment, like the same forged aluminum for an AR-15 upper and lower receiver. Well, they basically made a scope out of that. They just did the same thing for a scope. Some versions of the Acog are going to have tritium only. The most popular or most famous or most known about versions of it utilize a fiber optic that kind of sideways goes on top, and it will accept any radiant light that it can gather and then produce a bright and shiny red. Famously most popular, a chevron, but it also could be Boone and Crockett, could be the T shape, the circle, or the horseshoe shape. But the Acog advantages, it is seriously rugged. Like, the Acog is retarded rugged. It is really good glass. It gathers a lot of light. It's very clear. The crystalline structure in the glass that Trijicon uses on their Acogs, very, very clear, very bright. It is reliable once you got it zeroed. Provided you have the right Acog for the right barrel length and you're using the service ammunition for that barrel length and that optic, pretty reliable in terms of the BDC kind of in there. And actually, that reminds me to speak to the Acog's durability. I'm going to share something with you, which I haven't done before. Let's see. I always kept a journal for my deployments, and this one happens to be Iraq. And my name, but that's the front. And if anyone from ISIS is watching, we are the motherfucking capture the flag champions. Go fuck yourself. Bam. Actually, how we got this flag and what transpired to make this happen was I don't think I don't think I'm going to share that story. Let's see. Oh, still got to get all these pictures. But yes. Oh man. So we had in our MATV or MRAP, we did have situation, and that's what it looked like. I don't know if you can see that 20 millimeter pipe gun hole in it, but it's pretty rad. Some of the after effects of the vehicle lighting on fire, because what else is cool when things are going bad when suddenly your truck is on fire? You got to add a little spice, right? But in this fire, my buddy Ricardo, he just got out of the vehicle. Smart move, because the shit was on fire. But his M4, his sling got stuck in the chairs that they have, the seats underneath. So he just left the bitch and just jumped out of that thing. And his M4 looked like that. I don't know if you can see that properly, but that is a Trigicon Acog. That's a NSN 01 and Boone & Crockett non-fiber optic, just the tritium. My preference on Acogs if I have to use one. And that thing was still zero, still functional. You could still see out of it. The turrets were still adjustable. And that Acog got out of that vehicle fire, which I have no idea how hot it got and how long. It was about 10 minutes before we can get it out. That thing was still soldiering on. So big thumbs up to Acog or Trigicon that the Acog is a very durable product. And lifetime respect and love for Trigicon products. And the Acog for how much use and how much personal use I've seen of how much of a beating they can take. Now, the downsides, it's fucking heavy. Optics these days, it's heavy. Then again, I mean, it's forged aluminum, but it's heavy. The next thing is the eye relief is complete ass. Absolute dog shit. The fixed 4 power by 32 Acog is absolutely just awful. You basically need to move the Acog as far to the rear on your upper receivers you can physically get. If you could take off your rear side, put the Acog as far as it can go, close to your eye, and put the rear sight in front of the Acog, whatever. Like, eye relief sucks. And it's a automatic scope that is a fixed magnification. Now, for the time, it was pretty rad. These days, we're all about low power variable optics, variable zoom, variable magnification. And honestly, I would argue that is the way to go, unless you're going to have a simple, 200 meters or less battle rifle carbine, red dot on top, done. Acog, it was cool, and it definitely suited the needs of the military at the time. They are still in use today. But I could not, with the optics that we have out there today, I could not recommend or condone anyone going out there and paying the money that they cost to acquire one. That's not to diminish my respect and experience with the Acog, including our MRAP fire on my second deployment. All I got to say is I would look elsewhere these days. But if it was like 2005, I'd be like, dude, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Buy this thing. Okay. Keeping on moving from Pew Pew Archives. Welcome. Friend is trying to get me into night vision with the PVS 14 from Tactical Night Vision Company. I'm familiar with these guys. I actually know one of the owners of it. I'm not going to blast him out. He's always like putting up all this information on their products. So the company, TNVC or Tactical Night Vision Company, that's going to get 2 thumbs up for me. I'm a little biased because I know one of the owners, and he is a really honest and phenomenal guy who's very technically proficient, and he does extremely care about the customer. So, and honestly, like, I'm not sponsored by any company at all outside of him. his company. They don't know I exist, and this is kind of on the fly. But the company itself is good to go. Now, ideally, if we all had like Bill Gates money, we would avoid a night vision monocular. So a PVS 14 by itself, man, it's like show and tell tonight. So you might have a helmet that's going to look much like this, and you're going to have some kind of mount or base plate for that with a Rhino mount, J-arm, and it's going to come down or up. Depending on what you want, of course, you're going to tie it down. You don't have to tie everything down, just the stuff you don't want to lose. And night vision optics or nods, like, you probably don't want to lose that. So probably want to tie it down. But getting back to the point, if we all had like Bill Gates money, I would avoid always a night vision monocular, like a PVS 14, especially if it's not white phosphor, but it also depends on your needs. But for most of us, financially speaking, dropping 2,500, whatever it is, on just a single PVS 14 monocular may not be the most advantageous thing in the world compared to everything out there, but compared to 98% of the rest of the people that are surrounded by you in society and peers and everyone else, they don't even have night vision. So if you have even a PVS 14 monocular, depending on the quality and depending on what generation, if it has white phosphor or not, whatever lens coatings and who built it, the rebuild kit, whatever, that's going to put your heads and shoulders above basically 98% of everyone else who doesn't even have night vision to begin with. And the only way they can obtain seeing in the night is white light, which sucks for a lot of things, especially if you're doing a lot of passive stuff. But, you know, I think it would depend on price. It would depend on the unit itself. Now, ideally, if we did have Bill Gates money, we would go with a binos, like a binocular setup, 2 tubes, dual tubes. Some guys, it's not the world's best option, but it is a option and it does work. You can do a PVS 14 monocular by itself, which is going to financially, you can just tap into one of them. That's great. Use that for a while. You're already leaps and bounds above most people that you're even surrounded by in your state or town, including even law enforcement. Most of them don't have night vision unless they're like SWAT team cool guys. So like having viable, effective night vision, even if it is a monocular, that's already like a big step up. But once you save up enough money to buy another one, then you can bridge your PVS 14s, and then you can make binos. Now, bridging optics or night vision is not the world's best thing to do, but it is economical over time if you're going to buy one and then eventually buy another and then get them bridged. That could be a way to go. So I can definitely speak to the company that TNVC is a good company. But it's just a matter of, do you want to, if you already have like 2,500 and you're considering getting one PVS 14, are you willing or wanting to hang out and wait and double that over time and just get binoculars to begin with, which would be the better strategy? But the downside is you could have already had night vision, even if it's a monocular. So, yeah, there's a lot involved of like the quality of, or the different variation or type of PVS 14, what company made it, how durable is it? That gets into a whole thing. I'm kind of a nerd about night vision a little bit, at least the usage of it. I'm not the science mechanical nerd that can tell you all of like the lens concave angles and all this weird stuff, but it does interest me a lot. That would be my advice. If you have to, just buy a monocular for now, which you can later sell to buy some binos, or keep it, buy another one and bridge them. But at least the company you're buying from or plan to is definitely good. I'll tell you that. All right, let's see. Did I ever meet any Greek soldiers? The answer is no. No, I did not. We worked with Finnish soldiers, British soldiers. French soldiers that, incidentally, were not a big fan of me, which I guess that'll be a separate story. Anyway, I worked with Italian guys. We had the Danesoft or Danish Special Operations Czech dudes from the Czech Republic. They were pretty cool. Lithuanian dudes. I've worked with a lot of NATO partner guys, at least in passing. Really, it was the Finnish soldiers that I actually got the most handoff with. The rest of them, they were there, at least in Iraq or Afghanistan with us, and had some kind of role, responsibility, some kind of presence. I was glad they were there. I was thankful that they were, as an allied partner country, that they were with us. But among that list, now I've never encountered or worked with Greek soldiers at all. So that is a total mystery zone. I have nothing to say, good or bad. I don't have anything. Okay, let's see. From Jerry the Kazi. The people have spoken. We the people want firearms. Yes, and we the people have quite a bit of firearms, more than anyone even knows. And I agree. Let's see. Also, the diversity in firearms training classes never ceases to amaze me. People from all walks of life are learning how to use their weapons safely and effectively. Yes, that's a big thing. When everything was like super crazy, when COVID was really hitting, our concealed carry class was booked like 3 months out. Basic handgun, intro to the firearms, like every class we had was just booked into the future. And it stayed that way for quite some time. And I'm glad to see it because, what use is any kind of firearm if you don't know how to use it? Let's see. Especially if you inherit something like this and you don't even own any guns. You're like, I don't even know what this is or how to use it if I wanted to use it. Having something like this, not a bad plan. And even if used correctly, there's quite a lot of value and potential you can get out of something like an M1. But if you don't know how to use it, it's a really valuable, expensive paperweight, essentially. So training is big, important. So I'm glad to see that. And I've definitely done my fair share of free instruction on the range that normally I would have charged about $80 an hour, but it was a friend or a family member or a friend of a friend that really needed it. And I was like, let's just get you trained up. You were advised to pick up this gun because you have a legitimate, like you're a single female living by yourself. Like, yes, let's get you trained in whatever godforsaken gun your brother-in-law suggests you buy or whatever. And I've had a lot of those over the past year and a half. So training is key. It definitely is. It's like having a pencil. And you could write great books and novels and anything, but you don't even know how to read or write. Then that pencil is kind of worthless. So same thing. All right, let's see. We got Doc in the house. What's up, Doc? It's been a while. Well, not really. I posted the other day and you replied back. It was good. All right. Is it true that the medic was the best shooter in your unit? I've heard from a reliable source. I wish I had more than 2 hands to give it more than 2 thumbs down. Just kidding. You particularly were not bad. You weren't like great, but you weren't bad. Like in a gunfight, I could trust in you to be a functional member of society, and I had no concerns about that. Now, are we going to be winning top shot in the company? Are we going to be, hanging out with Chris Kyle at the winner's circle? Are we going to be doing like that movie magic, like crazy headshot from 500 meters away? You're great, Doc. You are great, and I still love you, and you know it. You were actually didn't worry about you, but you weren't like. And why should my opinion matter anyway? I was no Chris Kyle myself. I mean, It did shoot competitively in and outside the Army, but it's still, my opinion should not. Just know if my opinion matters, I never worry about it. It hit the fan, never worried about you. If my opinion should matter. So there it is. Let's see. What do you think about the rifles the Army is testing? I'm a little biased. I do hope that reason being the Textron and the General Dynamics, the other ones, the other submissions, are crazy, really complicated. I've seen blue of all the parts going into these guns. I'm just like, dude, simple is better. Sig Sauer basically in their offering to the Army, they have their own 6 millimeter range, composite ammunition. Basically, not really different much at all that what we're already doing in terms of aiming, working over 100 years now, with a couple improvements that are there, but really it's the same kind of thing. So it's not an M4 or M16, which are AR-15s. It's actually an AR-18 design, which in some way actually a little better. So it's a piston gun, so accuracy is not going to be as good as you could get with a direct impingement gun, but it's good enough for government work. And Sig Sauer does do some good heat treating on steel and nitriding. So, and probably most important beyond all that nerdy stuff is, the MCX is essentially what it is that they've offered to the Army. Is if you know how to run M or an M16, you can pick up the MCX, and within like 5 minutes you're gonna be like, okay, yeah, I got it. The controls are the same. It feels basically the same. It runs, works, at least from an end user perspective. It runs, and everything's basically the same. Like, sure, internally it's a little different, but for me, running the gun from an end user perspective, it's the same. Cool. 5 minutes, I got it. And conventionally speaking, with how the ammunition works, it's not too far off from what we already do. It's in fact a little better. So I really hope they win. The other ones are straight up trash. I'm not going to say that because a lot of big brain energy and engineering and money went into those, and I'm sure they're great on the flat range. The complication involved in how they are designed and how they are supposed to work, I do not have faith in. And in fact, I think Sig Sauer, if the contract even goes, even if the Army's new carbine system actually makes it to like the end where they actually procure and pay for something and start phasing out M4s over the next 20 years, if it actually ends successfully, instead of just getting scrapped like the last 12 or 13 programs did that were trying to do the exact same thing, I do hope it's SIG, and I do think it's going to be SIG that'll probably win. I mean, and SIG has kind of put themselves out there for, everyone knew them for like their, the coolest handguns of the 80s. And that was about it. And they moved into rifles and optics and ammunition, suppressors and machine guns. Like, they are literally they've put themselves all in on this concept of being a single source provider. And they've already successfully got the Tango 6, the Army's, for the M4 and everything like it, the optic contract, they got it. M17, M18 for not military at large, they got that. So they're kind of on a roll. And, the Army is still in the honeymoon 6 hour. So I think, and for actual technical, practical reasons, I really hope they win. If anyone actually ends up winning, I hope it's them. So let's see. I think I read an article from the Huffington Post that said we should ban night vision rifle optic. We're always trying to ban something, right? We don't understand. It has not actually been, it hasn't been used in any crime. It's just scary enough. What about the potential of it that we need to ban it? Yeah, I would urge, don't really have body armor plates if you don't have night vision and things. Most people don't, just because they're financially, at least you can get ceramic level 4 NIJ plates. It's definitely up from where we used to be, but in terms of night vision and especially thermals, and especially IR lasers too, like that is cost prohibitive for a lot of people. But if you can acquire that stuff now or in the future, as soon as you can financially kind of get there, I would encourage you to do that. Because I do foresee someday there could be a ban on body armor, night vision, things like that. I don't agree with it, but it is within the realm of total possibility. I mean, there's already been a lot of talk and things about that in the past. Some of it went somewhere, again, originating from the House. Big surprise, but not going anywhere. But, how many times do you have to try and fail before you might just be successful one time, and you only need to be successful once, even if you've tried hundreds of times. So I know it's cost prohibitive for most of it, but if we can all get there, I think we should get there. You know what I'm saying? I think you do. Let's see. I've already looked through PVS1 and typical binodes, or binods. I prefer the PVS14 over the binods. I looked through because I don't like darkness, the eyepieces with tunnel tube effect. I know what you mean, and the only thing I can attempt to say, sitting in my office and trying to explain, or at least give you my piece of that, is it takes time. It's almost like shooting a handgun that has a red dot optic on it for the first time, and you get through like half a mag. You're like, nah, dude, no, never, no, don't like it. And it's like, well, if you put in some reps and time and you stick with it, you got that time and experience, you're pushing the training on that, this is going to be the best thing you've ever seen. But not at face value. It is going to take time to really learn how to work with it and utilize and flex it, and then make it a total asset for you. So I understand that. It's just going to take time. And unfortunately, if you're just previewing or kind of checking out different pieces of kit, but you're obviously not going to own that thing for a year before you buy it or go through carbine courses or whatever with it, there's kind of no way to get that experience without owning it. It's almost like a holster or a sling. It's like, well, I can kind of preview it, how it feels and looks, but like, I don't know how this is really going to be until I carry it and use it and work with it over time. Same thing. So I would not let the first impressions there dissuade you, but ultimately everyone gets to make their own choice. I have heard kind of like some 18th century pirate shit of guys that want, pure natural night vision with one eye and then have the nods in the other eye. And that's why they're doing the PVS 14. So I don't know if I can like really stand 100% behind that. So I'm glad you didn't really bring that up. But I understand where you're coming from, and I can't really, there's no fun answer I can give you to make that make sense now, if that makes sense. But I would still encourage in the long run, having binos can be definitely a better way to go for sure. But it's the beauty of this country. We all get to make our own choices, right? Okay, let's see. Wait, Mr. 2A, I'm really curious as like you. It's a long story, but I don't think I really want to tell this. This accomplishment was a French colonel in French in front of my commanding officer calling me an American scoundrel because they all went to bed one night. There was a lot of fuel cans and tow straps and chain and useful items hanging around their little camp. It was a French artillery battery in Iraq, and we were next door to them. So my statute of limitations are still in effect. What is it? Oh yeah, definitely. Long story short, I would just everyone, especially in a military setting, or if you join the military or find yourself in that kind of setting, gear adrift is a gift, and I'm not encouraging. And there's a hierarchy of how If someone were to acquire, there's a hierarchy that you never steal from your own people, you never steal from anything like that. And steal, that's kind of a harsh word. We're talking about acquiring. If there's an asset available, unguarded, appears to be free, and you need that because you actually do go outside the wire. And the losing unit stays on the fob and gets to eat their steak and shrimp nights, and they never leave the wire. They're not going on missions. They're just hanging out, shooting their guns every now and then. But you outside the wire all the time, going on route Tampa, these like fun places. That is where you need fuel cans, you need tip straps, you need stuff because you're actually using it. You're one of the elements, one of the few on the fob that's actually going out all the time. And you happen to find an asset that's just hanging out and no one's guarding it. They're treating it like it's just dirt. It's worthless, not enough to lock it up or guard it. And you need that. You and your boys might need that on mission. There potentially could be lives if the right equipment, and there's never enough to go around, and you're actually the ones going out. And if you have equipment that you fall asleep and don't guard, and you don't lock it up either, and it goes missing, what a tragedy. I don't know. And I don't know who could have been responsible. I'm not sure. I don't know what we're talking about. We're just talking about basically bartering or acquiring equipment, which is an everyday thing. So I don't know, but it's a longer story than that. But if I'm pressed in a situation where me and my boys need equipment that we physically do not have, and it could mean the difference between life or death for us on the road or out on mission outside the fob, doing all these crazy movements up and down Tampa and everything else, and we need stuff, and we are not provided the stuff we need to do the mission that we're tasked to do, and our lives and well-being are on the line potentially for this. And if I see equipment that we as a platoon need, and it appears to be free or unguarded, well, I suppose if I was in that predicament, my answer would be that I would probably take that. And I would take it every day and twice on Sunday, because you don't need it, we do. And if you're asking me, with my soldiers, if their lives are less important than a fucking fuel can that you left unsecured, ooh, your fuel can is going to lose that every day of the week. So yes, your shit got robbed. Allegedly. So that's kind of the story there. But yes, alluding to my point earlier, yes, we worked with French soldiers, and probably that's more true than advertised, because yeah, they did allegedly probably facilitate our sustainment and fuel plan and load plan for all of our vehicles, especially antennas, which and for NATO vehicles are also the same. They kind of work, interchange them. Anyway, I don't want you guys the wrong impression. I'm just saying the one deployment and the one snapshot in time on that deployment that we, even in their own little thing they made to little bit of time I had with the French. I would like to be, as an American and as an optimist, a very productive relationship. But they don't see it the same way. And I don't blame them. So, with that said. Okay. Backhanded compliment. I thought you were the king of backhanded compliments. What's up, AK? Everybody. Well, I think we're coming in close to the end. I want to leave the last couple minutes here to let you guys ask any questions that you may have before I shut it down. Yeah, I am going to have to kind of go soon and get this all set up. I'm glad for those that were joining me earlier. Sorry that there were some technical issues. And this is actually the third attempt of finally getting the live stream going. So thank you guys for being here. that I have is going to be, I'm contemplating doing as basic as it sounds for you guys. I'm planning on doing a video about the basic rules of gun safety. Um, just because we have so many people that mess it up. We got so many people that um, professionals, or they've been training people or handling weapons for a long time, and start to develop this mindset of, well, I can't have a negligent discharge and ND. Like, I'm not going to ND. We're not going to have problems here. What could possibly go wrong for me? Uh, or we have people that are brand new and they don't have that kind of ego aspect to it. They just don't know what they're doing, and mistakes are made. So, you know, thinking about it the other day, because like 2 days ago, we had a dude on a range just like ND into the sidewall of the booth that he was in. It was actually pretty bad. I was like, wow, the past 2 years that I've been here, I've never seen anyone do something like that. And I've seen a lot of things so far. So congratulations. Also, this is terrible. And that was a guy who was a former 82nd paratrooper, which is funny because like he made that known as like a big deal, whatever. I was like, yeah, dude, I was 10th Mountain Division, whatever, like a leg, someone who's not airborne qualified, to them, that's a big deal. Made this big show, and then like 20 minutes later, just NDs like through the wall. And thankfully, no one was on the booth next to him. And he's like, yeah, I feel like bad saying this, but like, I totally just ND'd. That's me. I'll pay for the damages if I have to. I was like, yeah, dude, that's pretty rad. That's solid. That is the standard all the way. And I guess it could have been a little nicer about that. But at the same time, I don't know. There's a lot of new people, and there's a lot of people that should know better, or you would think they should know better, and they themselves do know better and think they should. But there's also a lot of new people, a lot of reasons to do like a basic gun safety video as to what are the basic rules of gun safety and why, and why we should never abuse them, why we should never let anything slip or get complacent. That's probably the biggest reason I've seen either people get killed from NDs. We had 2 guys, my last deployment, died from NDs, and actually it got so bad that brigade wide they mandated weapons training to prevent negligent discharges from keeping happening. And during the mandated training, they ND'd a Mossberg, and I was like, can we please for a second help even ourselves? We need to. So anyway, back to the point. I think that's going to be the next 4 rules. You're going to the 7 rules, whatever. But talking about the rules of gun safety and why we should not get lazy or complacent, why they matter and why we should let them go, and always observe them. And yeah, I think that's probably video next. Let's see. Hey, is it true that the military didn't teach trigger discipline until after Vietnam? That's actually a pretty interesting question, and I don't have a verifiable solid answer for you. We do have like vintage period training films from World War II and Korea and Vietnam, and like as things changed over the years. Also beneficial, or probably even more beneficial, is any interactions you've had. When I was a kid in the 90s, we had a lot of World War II veterans that were still alive. In my family, it wasn't crazy to actually meet a World War II veteran. There were still a lot of them around. Still do have a decent amount of Vietnam alive. So all of that to say that if you're fortunate enough to get some time with these guys while they were still alive, or if you have a friend or neighbor, family member that probably at this point was Vietnam veteran, Grenada, Panama, something like that, Desert Storm. If you have the fit and to talk to these guys, that's going to be a pretty historically, I mean, we call that a primary source, but it's going to be a pretty good primary source of one sample size of one perspective of what was going on, where you can ask specific questions like that. But throughout my life, when I've had the fortune to talk to the World War II guys, Korean veterans, at World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veterans in my family, and only had generations still alive in my family, but the times I've gotten to talk with them or talk with other people who served in those wars and fought in those wars, even on the other side, which kind of a creepy situation. I had a roommate in college that his grandfather was in the Wehrmacht during World War II, and my grandfather was in U.S. Army, the right after Normandy, moving into Europe, into Aachen, and liberation of or invasion of Germany, and Battle of the Bulge, and at the same relative places in time, my college roommate's grandfather was doing the same thing, but on the other side. So even if they're not American veterans, if they still exist and you can talk to them, I would still encourage that if they're willing, and not be too pushy on it. From my own perspective, as a veteran, which I don't believe my Afghan and Iraq shit does not hold a candle to what those guys were facing and what they went through. So anytime, I mean it when I say anytime that you get the fortune to be able to talk to these guys, if they're still alive and they're willing to talk and you're not being pushy and it's really cool, like, do it. But anyway, getting back to the question, it's interesting because firearms training, gun safety culture, routine habits, military and even law enforcement instruction in the use of firearms and how that was going to happen has definitely changed over the years, up to and including equipment, holsters, slings, different shooting techniques. A lot of this stuff has changed over the decades that we're talking about. But anyway, getting back to talking to the veterans, most of the World War II and Korea guys that I had the fortune to talk to, generally talked about having the muzzle down. When they're slinging that thing, have it down. When it's in your hands, muzzle down. Always have it down. Or you would have the guys that were muzzle up. Not as common, usually muzzle down. But and with how many guys have told me that, I mean, going back to the 90s, I almost wonder if that was like a part of the training or if that was an uncommon rule or unwritten rule. The idea of trigger discipline, but definitely for sure, I can tell you was not. Tell you, actually, I'll demonstrate, bring back the M1. So if we look at M1 Garand, those of you who know, notice where that safety is. But if I were to put this on fire, I would have to put my finger inside this trigger guard and then push the safety forward so it would sit outside that little square piece. So if you look at this piece of equipment that was designed in that time for those dudes, trigger guard that must be, when it's on safe right now, that's not even an inch from the trigger inside the trigger guard, where you have to put, I choose to, even just for recreation, that's all I use an M1 for. I'm not fighting with it. I choose to use my thumb because I don't want to put my finger in and just pushing that safety out. So you can study primary sources, but you can also study the equipment, and you can realize that when they were designing this equipment and when they were training dudes how to use it, it was the safety discipline, using that safety, utilizing that safety, and kind of culture that existed at the time. It was definitely not what it is now. And again, you can ask the dudes if you're fortunate enough to time, or look at the equipment they were trained in and designed for and used. You probably had squad leaders, some experienced NCO telling the dudes, you're not going to put your finger side guard until it's ready to go, and until you need to shoot it, you're going to leave that thing alone. Any variants of stuff. I don't think trigger discipline, and also a needed part that I've alluded to here, is safety discipline of always having that thing on safe until it's ready to shoot. And the AR-15, your M4 runs out, put it on safe, magazine goes, next mag, hit the bolt release, put it back on semi, keep going. Utilizing that safety, especially when you're going to pick up and move and then set down, comes back off safe, pick up and move, it goes on safe. Using the safety, not just the trigger discipline part of the equation, would be an interesting subject to really go down the rabbit hole in. But I can definitely tell you, it didn't really exist back then as we know it today. That's for sure. So, and also you had World War II gets tough because you have, well, Vietnam, Korea, they're all tough because you're dealing with volunteers, but a lot of draftees as well. And you may have a crazy mix of people that have a lot of time and experience on firearms in civilian life, hunting and shooting and everything. A lot of draftees, a lot of people that never held a gun in their lives. So they're just going to go off what they're told. And personal experience is going to show up as well. So, you know, it's kind of hard to say. I don't know. I guess that's probably the best, worst answer I can give you is the true answer, but I don't know. Only thing I can tell you is, yeah, definitely. It did improve over time. I don't know if Vietnam did. All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. I'm going to have to start closing it down. Don't really have enough time left to talk about the Alec Baldwin. Probably save that for. Thank you guys for being here. And you guys, again, can email me at mr2a@gmail.com. You guys got any questions? Could be gun related. Can be personal questions. I'll leave you anonymous. Anything sensitive like that, but questions about anything, just let me know. Thank you guys for being here, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. Try to get some more content for you guys. Been a little difficult with how busy life has been, but I still let you guys know I'm still paying attention, still caring about everything going on, and still want to engage with you guys. Just not as much time these days as I want. So anyway, thank you guys for being here, and I will see you guys later. You guys have a good night. Be safe.